Brandon, why I think you're one of the three anti-Trumps. I only think there are three candidates that can really own that badge. Is your resume, and a resume is not a brand, it's attributes, but a Harvard grad, a vet, traditional, in an untraditional way, religious, Rhodes Scholar, you bring out hope in the better angels in all of us. You know, I actually, when I read about you, I'm like, I'm not doing so good in my life. I can do better. And to me, that is the ultimate antithesis to Trump, who as a human, certainly, at least from my vantage point, is the polar opposite of that. To me, that decency, that core excellence of humanity is what separates you, and I think is the essence of your brand, that we could aspire to be, not only as a country, but as a person.
Well, I don't mean to put myself forward as an excellent specimen, but I do agree that you know, there's a need for us to recognize that a big part of leadership is just calling forth what's best in us. And right now we've got leadership that draws out the worst in us, draws out the absolute worst in supporters and opponents sometimes. And we need something different. We need a different way. And I know this is traditionally more of a conservative thing to say, but that moral leadership really matters. Character really matters. And I think we need to hold our president to a very high standard and want to put forward a case that each of us competing for that job ought to be looked at in those terms.
Along the lines, and obviously you were watching Trump long before you ran for office. Tell me what kind of human being you think he is, because I, to me, think your humanity is your best, is your essence, the excellence of it. Donald Trump as a person, not as a candidate, not as a president, what do you see there? Tell me what you see in that human being.
Well, I've never met him, and I've never spoken with him, so all I have to go off of is the way that he conducts himself and the way that he approaches this office. But I guess what I see is a lot of self-orientation.
I just want to stay on that for a second. I describe the president as a bad man, as a, in some ways, an evil man, as a callous man, as somebody with very little conscience, no compassion. Are you too nice? I want a candidate, and I think we need a candidate that when I ask them, is this a decent human being? Is there something wrong here? And, you know, I want those harder punches from you. And why are you holding back? I do know just by looking at your life and how you've lived your life, how you must feel about it as a human being. So I'm going to give you one more shot to take a tougher punch.
Look, my emotions about this president are not what's going to matter most. I'm not interested in expressing my anger about him as much as I am in defeating and ending his presidency. If we want to have a debate with him, a fight over any number of things, from the difference between you know, the way I approach service and the way he did, the fact that I was packing my bags for Afghanistan while he was working on season 7 of Celebrity Apprentice, we can have that fight. If somebody wants to you know, if someone wants to raise a question of which one of us has a more traditional attitude on marriage, we can have that fight. But at the end of the day, it's not about him. It's not about me. It is about you. Not you, but our host this evening, but you, the American voter. You know, we need to make sure that we're taking it, because here's the thing about this president. He has the ability to take any attention that comes his way, including attacks and criticism, and just kind of devour it and grow bigger from it. And so we could unintentionally be feeding the beast by competing to see who's the one who's going to land the biggest punch, the best zinger. And the reality is, that's an environment, if you just step back and think about the mentality that represents, that's an environment where it's almost as if he's the one we're trying to impress.
Mayor, you're about to go up against 20 or 19 others, and you take a very high ground, which is wonderful. Challenging for you now that it does become a zero-sum game, and you already see Bernie going after Biden. And how are you going to handle right now if I say to you, okay, your key competitor is Joe Biden? Tell me why you're, not just why you're better than Joe Biden, which means you do have to punch back at some of the other guys.
You know, I think at this point, with 20 of us, it suits all of us to run our own game plan, because you're kind of competing against the House. But this competition will certainly sharpen, and we will be able to point to the differences in how we view the important questions before us, as well as just the differences in where we come from as people. But I will say this. I think that about 80% of the views of the various candidates on the Democratic Party are pretty well aligned. You're going to see some differences from the leftmost and centermost candidates. You're going to see some differences in what we choose to emphasize. But at the end of the day, while there will be some disagreements over substance, the alignment's pretty strong. And so what's really going to matter is messenger do we want to put forward? Can we put forward a messenger who can win over people who are under no illusion about the president's character, but decided to vote that way in order to send a message that the economy and the government had let them down so much that they wanted to burn the house down? Tone and messenger is going to matter a lot. And I think that it's time for something completely different.
I hear you. Now, your final question is a very personal question, and I always think we're formed by some of the toughest early personal interactions we've had. You ever picked on as a kid? And because you're going to be going up against the bully, and whoever picked on you and what happened, I'd love to hear that story and what you'd like to say to them now.
Yeah, I have no shortage of batting practice when it comes to dealing with bullies. It's one of the reasons that I'm not going to hesitate to get into the arena here with some of the toughest and most morally challenged people that we've seen in a long time in politics. But one of the things I learned, especially the first time, I remember this it must have been high school, the kid just kind of hit me from behind in order to get a rise out of me. And then I just turned around and looked in the eye, and I've never seen somebody back off so quick. And what I realized is sometimes when somebody's lashing out, when they're hitting you like that, it's not because of you, it's because of them. And the strength that is required to see through that, see past that, and get to a better place is very different than the strength, or I should say the superficial toughness that's not strength, associated with just becoming like the person who roughed you up.
Mayor, once again, I want to thank you for your service in Afghanistan, because to me, as I said, that humbles everything else. You've been running a great campaign so far. You were a breath of fresh air, and I think you were one of the great hopes. And thanks for being on our premiere episode, my friend.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
You got it.